So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminski Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. Once again, we are streaming live. So for those folks that are joining us live, welcome to another show. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, you want to check us out live every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We do live streams. Me and my man, Owais Qureshi, in the house. What's going on, Owais?
What's going on, Henry? What's up, everybody?
Oh man, what a freaking day. Oh man, some family stuff going on. Our dog of 12 years or 10 years is going through some health issues, and we're hoping that he pulls through. That's that. On a lighter note, was listening to one of my favorite podcasts this morning and heard about this company called Swimply. Have you ever heard of these guys?
Swimply, no, haven't heard.
Ready? It's the Airbnb for pools. For pools. So basically, if you own a pool and you want to just rent out your pool for like X amount of time, you can now rent out your pool.
Perfect time, man. Just, it's the summertime, right?
Right. There was a clip saying there was a point where this guy had rented out his pool and has a wait list of like 2,500 people that want to use it. Now, the pictures of the pool is pretty sick. But basically it costs about $40 for you to rent a pool per person, right? So the guy made over $100,000 just renting his pool out, right? So it's very, very interesting. Wow. How about this one? Next, you're going to be able to rent a girlfriend. Yeah, that's called a prostitute. Or an escort, and I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Depending on what state you live in. Oh man. Anywho, Orange County websites, my man. He goes true. So today's topic, what are we talking about? We're talking about clarifying your brand's message. Big problem nowadays with all of the competition that's out there, with the crowded social media platforms. How do you articulate your value and the quality of your branding without sounding like everybody else, and do it in a way that's precise, that's digestible, that's able for that in a way that your audience is going to be like, you get me, right? There's another thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, and you had brought this up, Owais, before we got started. There's another issue when it comes to clarifying your brand's messaging that we're going to dive into, and what is it?
Consistency. They might be clear on what they do and who they do it for, but they can't consistently talk about that in a way that is cohesive, that is clear every single time that they, if maybe it looks great on their website, but they're not able to carry that into, let's say, a 60-second commercial when they're standing up in front of an audience at a networking event. Right? Or they can't take that, and maybe it's not showing up the same way because, like you indicated earlier, the digestible pieces of information is it digestible? That bite-sized piece of information, they don't maybe have that. Maybe that's not part of their brand playbook, right? And so that's not being taken into context on social media. Because again, we're down to what, 3 seconds now in order to be able to hook someone's attention?
It's crazy, dude.
What do you do? What do you say in a matter of 3 seconds? I mean, that in itself is an art.
Think about the YouTube videos, when you're on YouTube and before you get to that video, you get these ads popping up, right?
Yeah.
Like my finger is so ready for that skip button.
Yeah.
Like, God, like, you know what I mean? If you don't have my attention, and it's very disruptive. It's very distracting, especially like when you're in a good YouTube video and this ad pops up in the middle, like, you really, I will say this. The ones that actually get me to watch, and maybe it's just because I'm in branding, is the ones that really look well done, like produced well, and kind of look like a commercial, like a really good commercial. Those are the ones I'll actually not hit skip on and just watch them for pure curiosity's sake to see how are they positioning themselves? What is the message? Is the video structured properly? I have an IG carousel coming out next week on how to frame out a 60-second video for social media. Like what goes in each time frame, like first 10 seconds, next 10 seconds, next 10 seconds. So I have this all framed out for you guys. We'll post it in next week, but stay on the lookout for that.
I can't wait to see that one. Yeah, that'll be helpful for me too.
Yeah. Listen, because every second counts.
Yeah.
Every second counts. Big shout out to Edward Lantigua here. Could not miss this episode. And we got Mila Jovovich in the house saying thanks for sharing all of your great advices. Appreciate you guys for joining today live. So
we got some celebrities in the house, man.
We got some questions for you guys today that we want to pose to help you clarify your brand messaging so that you start attracting the right clients. And we're going to get into this right after this quick little message. If you're a business owner who feels your branding isn't truly representing the value that you deliver, check out this free video training that will help you level up your brand's messaging and online presence so that you can start attracting higher quality clients. Visit www.uniquedesignz with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/level up my branding. All right. So how about this, Oaze? Why don't we go through these questions for our audience one by one, but I'll take one, then you take one. I'll take one, and then you take one. All right.
Sounds good.
So question number one, when it comes to getting your message clear to your ideal client, is what do your customers want? What do your customers truly want? Curious to see the live viewers if you know that question, put it in the comments. Curious to see what you guys think. Okay. And then the follow-up question to that is, how do you know that your answer is correct? So I know, always you had asked me, what does that mean?
Yeah. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. Well, what did I say? I'm curious to see if you were listening.
Well, it's validation, right? Like, how do you validate that that what you think your customers want? So how are you testing that out? Is it an A/B test, or how are you even arriving at that conclusion that that's what your customers want? So what do you do in your state of business? How do you do that?
Yeah. So I do it in multiple fashions. There's many ways to skin this cat. And so one of the ways is really asking my existing clients a few questions like, what were you struggling with prior to engaging me? what was the biggest takeaway from what it is that I helped you with? Why did you choose me? And I asked those questions pretty straightforward, and I get some really great answers. And so there is some great insight there to be had. And it's literally right at your fingertips or right underneath your nose with existing clients. If you just ask them the questions that you're looking for, they're going to give you a lot of that information. And then you're going to take that information and put it in your marketing material. I spent a lot of this morning looking at some indirect competitors of mine, some pretty big personal brands in my space. And he had a tremendous amount of video testimony on his website. So what did I do? I watched every single one of them. And I'll give you an example. This one guy was saying the reason why I hired so-and-so was because he looked like he has cracked the code with establishing a personal brand online, and he's done it successfully. And in the beginning, I didn't have any sort of direction on how to go about doing that correctly. So I signed up for his workshop and I got my answers. I was like, there you go. So what's the key takeaway there? What does your client want? Well, they want direction. They want exactly this conversation today. They want clarity.
Exactly.
Right. Here's a great one. And this was another way that I do it. Orange County websites. This is, I love your polls and questions. They teach us how to ask those questions like you do. It doesn't feel like you're selling us. Yeah. I'm triggering some things that may be right underneath the surface that you might be asking yourself or are about to ask yourself. And then I push you over the edge by those polls in my IG story. Right. And I lead you down a series of questions. Like yesterday, I posed a couple questions. One is, are you doing shit inside of your business that you know you shouldn't be doing? Are you struggling with articulating the value that you deliver to your clients? Does your online presence really represent who you are? Yeah. And then the third question was, do you want to know what the top 5% of entrepreneurs that scale past the 7-figure mark or two 7 figs and beyond do? And they're like, yeah. And then I have a swipe up feature that takes them right to my masterclass. So that's how I'm bringing people in.
Here's a question for you, because you just talked about a series of questions that led them down a path. When is it appropriate to have an open-ended question that uses how and what as the openers versus what you were just doing, which was more of a yes and no type of a format?
So depending on what level of how deep they are in your funnel. Okay. So if they're top of the funnel, which I consider Instagram being very top of the funnel activity, that's got to be quick always.
Okay.
Like that's got to be yes, no, very quick, digestible, bite-sized pieces. Because to our point earlier, we got 3 seconds. So how am I going to get them to stop? Well, by a poll. Or the little quiz feature inside of your IG story. That's a great way to grab people's attentions quickly, right? Those open-ended questions, I would, if I were you, I would get them on my email list and I would start to send those types of questions out via email.
Okay.
Because 1, there's not going to be an audience. And 2, they're going to get more intimate with you. And 3, if they do write you back, they're probably going to go in length, because those types of questions typically draw a pretty hefty response, right?
Exactly.
But that's mid-funnel. That's mid-funnel. That's a great place to put those those types of questions.
So leave the open-ended questions for much lower in that funnel, and then at the top of the funnel, just try to make it as brief as possible, and leave that for more close, or reserve it for more close-ended.
It's one way to look at it and one way to approach it. Yep. Now I've seen other creators put the question sticker in their stories, and they get some longer responses. You could try it. See what works best. For me personally, knowing my audience the way they are, they're quick, they're fast. Top of the funnel stuff is very what's the word I'm looking for? Reactional, very quick, right?
Yeah.
But when I start to get some deeper response, it's mostly through my email.
So it seems like there's a higher level of engagement when you've reduced the rate of friction, or you reduce the rate of involvement from the other person's side. And look, if everyone in the audience right now is building some sort of a theme here, or building, establishing a pattern, notice what Henry said. I know my audience. Knowing your audience is that main driver in putting together all of this message. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is, that's our topic for the day. But again, it all starts off with knowing your audience.
Yeah, this is a great comment from one of our live listeners and viewers. Clients, customers want growth, progress, and results. Absolutely. Yeah. Here's another one. Orange County. I was lost without Henry. He gives me the clarity and direction, confidence, and checks in a lot. Yeah. I love when I get DMs from Orange County, because they're sincere, and it brings me back to when I was struggling with those types of things, maybe getting clients or serving clients that probably you shouldn't be serving at this point, and again, it comes with a level of standard. It comes with a level of toleration. I'm sure he's at his point now where once he starts to, what's the word I'm looking for, without sounding crazy, once he stands up for himself and stops taking the nonsense, it will stop.
Yeah.
It will stop. But again, it's getting clear on what it is that you're accepting and what it is that you will not tolerate. And believe me when I tell you, when you start laying down the law, or just like telling it straight up, like, it's funny how quickly people are like, okay.
Yeah. And look, I was there not too long ago. I mean, about a year and a half ago, I was struggling through that. And, I think if there's anything that I can tell, if I was to give away how I was able to overcome that, it's through a couple of things. First is journaling and writing down. Clarify exactly what it is that you stand for in your business. What will you stand for, and what are you unwilling to compromise, and start from that. And then, of course, clarify exactly what value you're bringing to your clients.
Yeah.
And how is that enabling you to stand apart from all of these other businesses in your space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important to understand that. Yeah, it's very important to understand that.
And then speak to that over and over again. It becomes, when you're doing repetitions on that, I think that's when you really start becoming more confident in how to lead your business, and how to introduce your brand, how to present your brand to your customers.
That gets a clap.
Yeah.
That gets a massive clap right there. There's something to be said. There's something to be said about repetition, right?
Yeah.
I forget where I heard this from, but they were talking about being repetitive. Like Gary Vee always is, same thing, hustle, this and that, right? But at least where this guy stands, right? And it just goes to show, when you are consistent like that, people now get an understanding of what it is that you do and how you do it, and your approach and your values. When you're not doing it consistently, people are like, well, what is this entity? And one day they're like this, and one day they're like that, and I don't know if they're the right fit for me. But if you're consistently telling the same story, you're consistently talking about the same topics, Now people are going to form and mold an opinion about you, which could be good or bad, but at least they know where you're coming from. And I think that's very, very important.
Yeah. Look at all the big brands. Look at all your well-known brands that you can think of. And if today we were just to run through an exercise, and maybe we should do this next Monday, we run through an exercise where we take a tagline from each one of the major brands and just put that tagline on the screen or just say it. And we ask the audience to guess what brand is it. I guarantee you, and that illustrates a point.
Yeah.
That drives it home that if you have a clear, consistent message that's repeatedly out there over and over and over again, guess what? That creates a recognizable brand.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny you say that. So Z100, the radio station over here in New York, Elvis Duran in the morning did a fun little contest. He gave away $100. He brought a listener on, and he just gave sound effects.
Oh.
And he did 10 sound effects. And if you got all 10, for every, what was it or 5, for every one you got right, you got $20. Right. So he did 5 sound, like the Intel, right, sound, the chime or whatever. He did I forget which ones he did, but it's very similar to your exercise. That's consistency.
Yep.
That's consistency. So we got a bunch of more questions for you guys here to help you clarify your messaging. So question number 1 was, what do your clients want, and how do you know that answer is correct? We gave you some strategies there. Survey your clients, survey your social media audience, and really listen to what they say, because that's going to give you a lot of validation in what it is that they see you being a pro at. All right. Question number 2, go ahead, Awais.
So what are your clients' needs?
Why don't you take the second one too? Because those two kind of go together.
Yeah. So, and what's driving those needs, right? So the identifying those needs, here's how I do this for my clients. So most of the clients that I serve are in the B2B space. So they have their customers or other businesses that buy from them. And typically right now, what happens is that there are about 6 to 8 different decision makers from 6 to 8 different roles that are part of the buy process at any given point in the customer journey. So, without getting too technical in that, the main thing is that now when we talk about messaging, now you have to personalize that message or really cater that message to that very one specific role. So one of the questions that I ask in my voice of customer research when I'm interviewing some of these people that are on my client's side, some of them might be CFOs, some of them might be the actual business owner or the CEO. It could be a directorial manager or a field operator of a specific machinery. But again, as I'm going through that, these are all specific decision makers. And guess what? One of the main questions that I ask is, how do you measure success in your role? And how do you measure success when purchasing this type of a product or a service? And that tells me, go ahead.
And what types of responses do you get?
Oh gosh. I mean, again, a CEO or a business owner's response is going to be entirely different. It's like, hey, I don't want to be shut down. I want to make sure that I'm going to continue to stay in business. Productivity, efficiency, time and money. The time and money part continues to stay kind of the center focus. But it's going to be a different driver for different roles. So, again, for someone that's on the field, they might tell me the same thing, but from an entirely different perspective. I just want my machine to be operating at all times. Whereas the CEO might tell me, hey, I want to maintain profitability. Where the CFO might just tell me that, hey, look, we want to make sure that we're in the plus, right? So they're all telling me time and money, but from an entirely different perspective.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But we need to be able to speak to that. Like I said, there's so many different touch points in the customer journey, and we need to be able to speak to each one of those people in a very personalized way. So now it becomes even more targeted.
Yeah.
And guess what? The more targeted you are, and the more that you can speak to their specific needs, desires, and more importantly, the outcome, that desired business outcome, they are going to now think of you as the obvious choice.
I love it. I love it. Let me give you an example. So I work with a lot of personality brands. So, you know, we're talking coaches, consultants, authors, you know, social media personalities, you know, those types of folks, right? And I was working with a client a few years ago who was a consultant, and she was a rock star. I mean, she was a solopreneur making over $1 million a year. And one of the things that I found out over time was she was married to a wealthy guy, you know, and she was sort of, I wouldn't call her an alpha personality, but she was definitely a force to be reckoned with. She reminded me of one of my aunts. She was actually, she's super cool, right? And my aunt has a lot of entrepreneurial experience as well. Not to be messed with, you know, knows what she wants and will make sure that it happens, right? And one of the things that I found out, now this never really came out in conversation, literally, but what I found out was my client didn't want to live in the shadows and live off of her husband. That was a big thing. She wanted her own success. She wanted her own income. And she wanted to do her own thing. So she didn't feel reliant on husband. So that was a need of hers, is to have something called her own. What drove those needs? A very interesting upbringing for herself in her childhood years, which I won't get into. It's way too personal. But when we went through her brand story, that all came out. I made sure that I told her that I would never say anything of it. But the story was so touching, and it made so much sense why she needed this brand to succeed and why she was investing so much money into it. And so it's very important. That's one client. Another client, I realized that they had a significant other that was pushing them to do their thing and to really represent who they really are. And my client wanted to make that significant other proud. So they invested in themselves. It was like a triple win situation. I won the business, they won the confidence, and then my client won the significant other over even more because of their suggestion. Right? And so it's powerful stuff. You know, so understanding clients' needs and what drives those needs is going way deeper than the surface level nonsense that a lot of people just tell you to do because it's easy to tell you to do, and it's easy to do. Like, you got to get under the hood and dive deeper into what's driving those needs. A lot of it in my arena is status driven. People want to feel important. People want to have the stuff. People want to feel good about themselves. Now, I will asterisk that and say, make sure you don't tangle your net worth with your self-worth. That's a very slippery slope that you can fall down. So pay attention to that. Don't do that. Yeah. But a lot of this stuff is status driven. You know, oh, I work with this client now, so, you know, I'm that much better than my competition. I don't know. I would argue that. I don't care who your clients are. I want to know how you treat me. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, yeah. Don't let your possessions be an extension of or the reflection of your success.
Yeah. We see. I gotta. Saham L says, my clients need empathy through the process that we're going through. Okay. How do you know that? Let's talk about that. Right. We got another comment here. If you're watching this, try to share this and tag them both. More people, the better. Oh, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw a little spike in viewership. So I appreciate everybody doing that.
Thank you.
All right. Another question for you guys as we start to wrap this up. We got about 10 minutes. What's the solution I need to design so that your audience, quote unquote, gets it? And the next question to follow up is, how will I deliver that action or solution? Okay. So what's the solution I need to design so that they get it? And how are you going to deliver that? Right. This is where we get into offer creation and lead generation and offer structure and how to position the right lead magnet and all of that. Yeah. Like very, very important stuff. If your lead offer is off, it's like filling up a pool with cesspool water, like with a sewer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I used that one just came off the top. I'm sorry, guys. But I want you to get a visual. You put in a brand new pool and the tanker truck comes over and it's not the water truck, it's the septic cleaning truck.
Oh man.
You know, and they back
carrying
up
all that septic water.
Yeah, they back up into your driveway, they pull out the thing and you're like, whoa. That's not the water truck. That's a freaking septic clean out truck. I don't want that shit in my pool. Literally. That's what happens when you don't have the right lead offer. So very, very important. Okay. We got a couple more questions. Go ahead, Awais.
So, you jump to the solution, but I guess this is this connects it. So before you get to the solution, of course, think about, what are you trying to solve? Mm-hmm. Where's the gap? Identify those gaps. So where's the gap between your clients and what the competition is doing? But more importantly, what are those primary pain points? I always say this, is like, look, palpate that pain point with your messaging.
Yeah, exactly. So where's the gap? So if I understand this correctly, where's the gap between where your clients are frustrated and what the competition is doing, serving them? In that gap lies the opportunity.
Yeah, that's the blue ocean.
Yeah, that you could come in and grab.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so once you do that research, what are the 3 primary pain points that your clients deal with, and what seems to be the common denominator there?
Yeah.
Right. That's what we need to uncover. Okay. And then last question is this: how can you check in with your clients to find out what the new pains are that they're experiencing or the new gains that they want to achieve?
Yeah.
This is like, I go back to the old 80-20. 80% of this game, guys, is listening. And like, I hate to say this, but like doing a little bit of stalker work, like really spending the time, understanding what your competition's doing and how they're positioning themselves and things like this. Now, let me preface this, and I'm talking out of personal experience. In the beginning, when I would do this, I would spend a whole day. I would dedicate an entire day. I would find 3 competitors and spend 8 hours breaking down all 3 of them, right? Total. And I got to tell you, at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I might have or might not have been in a bad mood. Why? Because I realized how much I wasn't doing that my competitors were doing. And it was sort of like a kick in the crotch because I was like, oh, you think you're doing so good, but look at what they're doing. Right? Little overwhelming. But I got to tell you, don't fall into the comparison trap. Don't fall victim to the comparison trap. Yeah, it's all about mindset. It's all about perspective. When you're doing your research with your competitors, take that as free advice.
Yeah.
Take that as free consulting.
That's right.
You can't pay for that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Right?
It's reconnaissance more than anything else.
Yeah. But there's got to be more of that than talking. And I think that's where I got tripped up in the beginning, where I did a whole bunch of talking, but not a lot of recognizance. So, you learn a lot more when you listen than when you talk.
That's right.
That one didn't come easy for me. But you get better. I still don't think I'm awesome at it, but I'm getting better at it. But I have a completely different perspective now when I'm doing competitor research, because I understand. I see it from a completely different angle than what I saw it from in the beginning. So what do we got here? We got one more comment, and I think we'll start to wrap up here. So you have to ask so you can hear the problems. The good customers won't be annoyed by it, and they should love that you're taking interest in it, even not on the clock. Yeah, very, very important. Right. So
speak from their perspective. I think that I keep saying this over and over again, is that when you're putting together this entire message, it's very important to, after having done all that research, to really craft that message from their perspective, because those are the people that are going to be buying from you.
Mm-hmm.
So remove the I, we, and this is typically what you see in a generic website of a lot of startups that have probably, they hired a low-end designer, and that's okay. That's what their budget allotted at the time. But what they did was just for time-intensive purposes, they pulled stuff off the web, and it all sounds so generic with the I, we do this, we do this, we do this. Rather than we help you accomplish this, we enable you to do this. You're now starting to speak from the customer's perspective rather than it all being about yourself.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, and I'm very conscious of that these days. I was an I-weed kind of guy back in the day, and even the way I could have crafted these questions today, I could have said, where are our, right? But instead, I specifically use the word you. So what do your customers want? What do you need to do? Because that's who I'm talking to.
Exactly.
Right?
Speak to your audience.
Speak to your audience. Yeah, it speak to your audience.
Bring them in for the conversation.
Yeah, I love Henry's work because it's all custom and unique. Yeah, you're not going to get another Henry out there, that's for sure. But that's something that you got to embrace. You got to embrace that, and got to realize that that's so important to have, is that sense of uniqueness and that quality of your personal brand. It's it. Nobody's going to think like me. Nobody's going to talk like me. Nobody's going to see it the way I see it. Same for you. So leverage that. Yeah. Don't give that away for free, guys. Yeah. Don't give that away for free.
Yeah, and one final piece, you're saying nobody's going to talk like me or sound like me. So, that's also very important. The tone and the voice.
Yeah.
Even when it's not in a live setting like this, right? even if it's not in a video or an audio format, that still has to carry over. I think I was telling you, Henry, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but a couple of weeks back, I got an email. So I'm on, obviously I'm subscribed to your email. So I was like, Henry, something's a little off. These last 2-3 emails, it just doesn't have that brand doctor Henry Kaminski tone to it. What's going on here? So
and you brought it to my attention.
I was like, I really got to bring it to your attention because it doesn't carry that same weight. I don't feel like Henry's talking to me. So, it's something to be cognizant of, even in your own, like, as you're building your own brand message. So what is that voice? Is it funny? Is it serious? Is it something that, isn't, yes, it sounds professional, but at the same time, it's a little laid back, sounds human. And so all of those things need to come into play. And of course, it needs to resonate with that core audience that you're wanting to speak to.
Right. How are the emails moving forward? Like recently?
Oh, I love it, man. Now I feel like it's back in place in terms of who's talking to me. Yeah, and that's really, I think that's what it needs to be, right? It needs to be personalized from Henry to whoever your audience is.
When you gave me that feedback, I immediately jumped on a call with my team and gave them that feedback. And we tweaked our process there for those emails. And now there's some tight checks and balances there before that email goes out to make sure that it's that tone of voice that you're so familiar with and so comfortable with. And that's huge. You know what I mean? That's huge. So
if you run a personal brand, if you have a personal brand, or if you're building a personal brand, think about your isms. There's a certain, I can probably put together, if you watch enough of Henry's videos, you can probably put together a list of 20 Henry isms. And so if you do this repeatedly for yourself, what's going to happen is you're going to start figuring out what your isms are. And when I say that, is like, your signature phrases, that becomes a part of your brand. Yes. And that, you see what I'm saying? So, and then when you do that over and over again, now it's equivalent to that big brand tagline that everyone's aware of, right?
Exactly. That's
so
fantastic.
Regardless of how that's communicated, even especially if it's in an email format, they know that it's that person that's talking to them.
And with that said, we're going to wrap this up. The biggest takeaway that I want you guys to get out of today's show is strong messaging equals strong funnel equals more qualified leads equals more sales. I'll say it again. A stronger message equals stronger funnel equals more qualified leads equals more sales. That's it. So, is it important to get your message super laser focused clear? Is it an expensive problem to have? You bet your ass it is. So that's why we do topics on this. We do shows on this topic because it is so important. If you don't get this right, nothing else is going to work. So this is the real core foundational stuff that's going to really help you build a strong brand and help you come from a different angle, from a different perspective, and really have you standing out from all the other noise that's out there. And that's my mission, is to help you guys create a profitable, reputable brand that stands out from everybody else. Hell, if I could do it, you could do it. So stop playing the Lone Ranger. If you're really struggling with this stuff, book a brand assessment with me one-on-one. We'll sit down, we'll have a nice conversation, and we'll see where you're really struggling and how we can help you. It might not be me, guys. It may not be me. But we'll get you in the right direction. So Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I think I've expressed my message as best as possible.
All right, guys. So a couple things.
I've hit it home, man. I
want to know your biggest takeaway from today's conversation. So drop it in the comments and tag me on the @thebrand.dr Instagram. Tag me in your stories. Let me know what your biggest takeaway of this episode was. I will certainly repost it and shout you out as a thank you. If you haven't written a review yet on Spotify or iTunes, if you're over there listening to that, make sure that you do that. That feedback is my gasoline. And if you're not a subscriber yet to this YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to be bringing it to you live every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. Appreciate everybody that was tuning in today, like Sahami L and Orange County Websites and Ed Lantigua. And who else we have? We have Facebook users, so my apology. I don't know who that is.
we had Mila Jovovich earlier.
Oh, yeah. Mila Jovovich was in the house. So appreciate all you guys for tuning in live. And if you want to tune in live and be part of the conversation, every Monday and Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern at my YouTube channel, The Brand Doctor. Have an amazing day, guys, and I will catch you on the next episode real soon.